Hello, and welcome to Dear Franny, the podcast where I have uncommon conversations with fascinating people about love, sex, relationships, creativity, all the good stuff. I'm your host, Francesca Hogi. In today's episode, I talk love, life, dating, heartbreak, creativity, and entrepreneurship, and more with my friend Carmen Rodgers. Carmen is a Dallas native, though she now lives in Brooklyn, New York. She is a recording artist, an entrepreneur, you'll hear about that in the episode, and an advocate for her fellow artists. She tours both as a solo artist and as a featured vocalist and songwriter with the Grammy-nominated band The FOREIGN EXCHANGE. You should definitely check them out if you haven't already. She's also worked on critically acclaimed films and shorts, and her song Stay from her third studio album Stargazer was recently featured in the Netflix original film Nappily Ever After, starring Sanaa Lathan. Look for Carmen on recently released projects FourFront by her touring mate Zoe and May the Lord Watch, the long-awaited reunion album of rap duo Little Brother. Carmen's fourth studio album, Hello Human, is expected in early 2020. I can't wait for her new album, and I can't wait for you to hear this interview with my friend Carmen. Without further ado, please enjoy. Carmen Rodgers, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm thrilled to have you. And I got to just start with the fact that I was like, let me just see what Carmen's been up to, recently. And I go on Instagram, and the first thing I see is a picture of you and Janet Jackson yesterday.
How about that?
I'm like, this woman, she is just, first of all,
I wonder how my life is set up. Those
how
things
your
happen,
life is set
and I remain open. I just try to remain open. Yeah.
So how was that? How was it meeting Janet?
It was surreal. I, of course, like many, have been a fan of hers since I was wee bit, and seeing her in concert. This is my second time seeing her, and I'm fortunate to have friends that actually are in her band. And so I got to see her a couple of years ago, and this time I got to see her with more friends that joined her band, and they facilitated a meetup, and I got to meet her and say hello. And the funny thing is, at first I was disappointed in myself because I couldn't put words together. When I walked up to her, the only words I could get out was, "My name is Carmen," and then I got stuck. And I said, and then I followed that with, "Okay, that's all I got." And she giggled with her cute self. She just giggled and said, "And sometimes that's all you need." And she just laughed the whole time. And so we take this picture with her with this big laugh, squinting, because she's laughing at the fact I can't get my composure. And so
that's amazing.
Yeah, so it was just great. I mean, meeting your childhood and adult idol is so good. And what's funny is the biggest question that I've gotten from friends and strangers alike, the most common question is, what does she smell like?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it would not even occur to me to ask that question, but I bet she smells good.
She smells like, she smells like joy, love, and freedom. That's what she smells like.
Wow. Oh, I want to smell like that.
Right.
I want to smell like that. Amazing.
It's a scent. It's a real thing. It's a real scent.
Wow. So is that just something that's coming from inside of her, or she's just found the right mixture of products and scents to make her smell that way?
I really think it's a combination of things. I think it's divorcing a billionaire, becoming a mother, and living her life. Her message has been really clear throughout her career. It's been the same. She's been all about freedom and expression and loving people for who they are and meeting them where they are. I really appreciate that. And she's always been about freedom too, whether that's freedom in who you love and how you love, and loyal to the same dancers have danced for her forever, with some new people kind of sprinkled in. And I think it's just a combination. And then, of course, she's filthy freaking rich. I think it's a combination of the right products and the right type of living.
Yeah. Well, I need to get on that train. J-Lo apparently also smells amazing. You've never smelled anything so wonderful as J-Lo. Apparently. I don't know.
What's really funny is I had that conversation on the way from seeing Janet. And apparently it is common. People say she smells amazing. And of course, we know what she looks like too. I mean, she's goodness gracious. Can we all drink from whatever fountain she's drinking from?
Seriously. Actually, this is interesting. So I have a friend, my friend Max, and he's very, very, very much about scent. Like he, you know, he's attracted to women because of their scent and not, you know, perfume and products, just their natural scent. He's very sensitive to it. And there's some women he's like, she's beautiful, but I can't with her smell, which I find so fascinating because I'm not that sensitive. I consider myself to be pretty sensitive to smell, but I just don't want you to smell bad. If you don't actively smell bad, then I'm good. But it is interesting because scent does play a role in attraction, and not just sexual attraction, but just attraction to people in general. Goodness, I got to give some more thought to this. Do you give thought to this?
You know what? Honestly, I think until those questions were asked over and over again, I hadn't thought about it so much. But even now in this conversation, I'm thinking about some of the people I've encountered. I believe that there is something to it in how you live and what's going on with you. You know, our body chemistry, it's in sickness. I believe that, you know, we are what we eat and we are how we live. So I believe there's probably something to that. Not just those kind of, you know, endorphins that are given off for mating. There's some other things going on too. So that's something that'd be interesting to research, huh?
Yeah, very interesting. And now that we're talking about this, I'm also thinking about my friend Kaitlan, who always says that because she always wears different oils and she makes her own oils and she smells really wonderful all the time. And she thinks that she's very beautiful, which is another, but she's also like, she thinks that the fact that she's always smelled really good has been more important in terms of attracting men than the fact that she's beautiful.
Yeah, I've met Kailani and I'd have to beg to differ. I think the bonus is that she smells great, but she's beautiful. So come on, girl.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. That's when she told me that. I was like, well, that's why I'm just remembering it now. And I'm like, because when she said it at the time, I was like, okay, whatever. But now I'm like, well, you know, it probably is some icing on the cake. So let's all give some thought to that.
I think it's some icing, and it's probably a nice deal sealer.
Right. Exactly. You get close and you're like, oh yeah. I love that we're talking about scent. This is great.
Me too. And, you know, I've gotten into making products. It does change everything.
Yes.
When you smell good, when you feel good, when the touch and the scent, it does. All of it goes hand in hand. So
it does go hand in hand.
The senses, it's all those senses working.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I definitely want to talk about your product. So I, unfortunately, because I haven't seen you since you launched Derriere, I have not actually been able to sample anything, but I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks. So I'm really excited. I'm going to get my body butter.
It's the booty butter and body butter.
Booty butter. That's right. Booty butter. Yeah. I'm very excited
and booty
for that. So tell me, okay, so obviously you are an amazing musician. You are constantly on the road, touring, doing shows. You were in Russia half the summer. You were like on billboards in the Ukraine. I'm like, my girl is killing it. It's amazing.
What a year it's been. It's been a year. So exciting.
It looks like a lot of fun. Are you having fun?
I'm having fun. I'm having so much fun. Like, it really, there's no other way to do this. As much as I travel, as hard as it is, you know, people think traveling is all sexy, but traveling is part of the work as well. As much as I travel and all that it takes to prepare for these shows and do these shows, the energy it takes to give at these shows and then give after the shows, because I want to say hi to everyone and hug everyone and take pictures and sign CDs. It's all part of the work. There's no way to do this and not have to want to work to actually have fun with it as well. So it's been so good. This year's been great.
So as an artist and as a performer, I would think that just for everyone, no matter what your job is, you have to obviously bring some energy and presence to what you do it well. But when you are giving out so much on stage every night, what are you doing to keep yourself filled up? How do you stay sane and balanced and full of energy? Because you have so much energy, which I will say, our whole group of girlfriends, I'm like, why does everybody have so much energy?
You know what? For me, it's funny because our group does like so much energy, so much talent, but finding out new gifts that our friends have. And it's so cool to see. It's so amazing to support. They all have their ways to recharge. And I think for me, one of the most important things is unplugging. I unplug a lot. That means putting my phone on airplane mode, and literally I will put all my electronics and stack them in a corner.
I love that.
Stack them. I push them away, and I do things that require some real life living. You know, that is, you know, I've gotten into my plant babies, making sure they're good, doing some reading. I'll listen to some music. I love playing vinyl, so I'll play my music, my album on a record player, which gives that, you know, analog and kind of the throwback feel. And I love napping. I love napping. It's one of my favorite things. I used to say that if there was a nap Olympics, that I'd be a gold medalist, because I believe that people say, you know, you sleep when you die, and, you know, grind. And there's no way to do things at our level without resting. And it's unfortunate that resting has gotten this bad rap. It's lazy. No, there's no way to do what we do at our level without having energy to do it. And you need energy, and you also need to be lucid. And none of those things are taking place if I'm exhausted. So I try to rest, and part of that resting, the biggest piece of it really is unplugging, and then really connecting with people in real life. That's a big deal for me. Being on social media, I feel, is part of what I have to do as an artist, because that's unfortunately kind of the world we're in. But for me, then connecting with my friends, the people I love in real life, that recharges me as well. Small group settings, one-on-one, talking. I love to cook. I love to do things that require some sort of, I think, alchemy in some ways. You know, cooking for me is a part of how I like to create as well. So all those things that require some creativity and connecting, and cooking for friends, connecting in a different way. Those are ways that I recharge, but resting and unplugging is a big piece of that.
Yeah. I love that. And it is for me too. I'm always encouraging my clients to unplug more and to really have rules about how they engage with technology, how they engage with social media, because if you don't, it will take over your life. And it's such a drain, and it's so not worth it. Like, it's just the instant gratification of spending, 2 hours going down some Instagram rabbit hole is not worth the cost to your sanity and your peace of mind and your creative energy and all of that. So, and
sometimes your security and your self-worth, because what happens as well is that evil comparison monster starts creeping in, and you start looking at how other people are showing how they're living, and you start questioning, who am I? Am I as far along as I should be? They look like they're having, and this is what I'm doing, and start comparing yourself to those individuals. And I think that's a big piece of part of our challenges as well. I literally was in Vegas, of course, seeing Janet this weekend, hanging out with my friends, and we walked into the casino, and I said, wow. I said, social media is like an online casino. It's lots of lights and lots of distractions, and it's things that
lots of bells and whistles.
Lots of bells and whistles, but it's not real. It's a lot of it's not real, and the house always wins.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and so if you can unplug and realize that it's kind of part of the game, that you dip in and play and dip out, really create boundaries to not let it take over, then you can navigate that space without it being so unhealthy. Because I believe that as kind of a society right now, how we're engaging in social media as a whole is really unhealthy.
It's so unhealthy, and it's so interesting because you're like the 14th interviewed so far for the podcast, and I think that for pretty much everyone, if not every single person, social media has come up, and it's come up as something that needs to be managed. It's come up as something that is potentially very toxic if you let it. It's come up as something that everybody has to really come to a decision, like, okay, how am I going to engage with this? And how am I going to present myself? And how am I going to deal with the comparison? And how am I going to deal with the FOMO? And how am I going to deal with all of that? And it's like, even when you are somebody who's very intentional about it, like you, like me, like a lot of people that I've spoken to, it still can get you. So
no, it's still difficult because this is brand new terrain. We don't have a playbook for this.
Yeah.
We are all learning as we go along. And so we have, of course, cautionary tales, but until it impacts people negatively and we see it, or it impacts us negatively and we experience it, and a lot of times we don't know how to create boundaries. We're all figuring it out together.
Yeah, we sure are.
Yeah,
for better or for worse, we are figuring it out together.
For better or for worse, because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, there's so many things that you said that I want to touch on. And first of all, I want to go back to kind of what I had an original question that I got sidetracked because I just want to talk to you about everything. But I wanted to talk about how you came to create your product line and what was the thought process behind that.
I have been making products for myself and for my friends now kind of going on some years. I would make stuff and try stuff out, and I was vegetarian for some years, and when you have a vegetarian lifestyle, you start looking at ways that you can really create this healthy living. You realize how many things are toxic in your life that you're consuming or putting on your body, so you start figuring out ways to remove those toxins and remove those things that really we're not supposed to be ingesting and we're not supposed to be putting on our skin and in our bodies. Even before the rest of my friends found out, I would make this product for one of our mutual friends, Jodine. I would make the scrub.
Yes.
She would say, oh my God, I've stopped using all of the store products. This is so good. And oh my gosh. And then she'd just bring her empty jar and I just refill it. And so recently a friend of mine used it and she said, Carmen, this is just too good to give away. This is something you really should look into doing. I took a page from her book and decided I'm going to do a soft launch. We're really still in the early stages of it. And my friends have been so wonderfully supportive actually buying the products. And these are friends that we're getting the product for free. They're buying the product and they're telling their friends and they love it and they're helping me make the product and make improvements on the product and the packaging. Yeah, and now we're at this point where it's derriere. It's booty and body butter. And part of it is I was using it on myself and I noticed some big changes in my skin, specifically on my butt. I liked how when I use this particular scrub,
our butts, they do a lot. They do a lot of work.
Yes.
They do a lot of work and they don't always get the attention that they need.
Because
you're sitting on that butt all day.
All day long.
So, rubbing in your pants.
Come on. And so someone I was seeing at one time when I was, using this product on myself, this was like 3 years ago, literally said, I love how your butt feels after you use that stuff. Now, that wasn't the sexiest thing to say, but
it's a very good endorsement for your product.
It's very good endorsement. I said, I like how my butt feels too. And
oh my God, I can't wait to try it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, and that's what it's been. And so it's really an intense moisturizer. And you start with the scrub and you finish it off with the butter. And you're glistening. You just want to touch yourself. And then when somebody else touches you, it's a significant difference. And I just love the product. I love the improvements I'm making on it. And I love the response I'm getting from people. And these are friends and strangers. And, I know my friends can be biased, but they really, really do love the product. And so I'm just really excited to expand it and grow it.
So that's exciting. And of course, we'll link to all of that in the show notes so people can check out the booty and body butter. But also, the other thing that you said that I think is really an important point is in terms of recharging and unplugging and making time for those IRL face-to-face connections with people.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that everybody gets that because it's so easy, especially because between social media and being so busy, I mean, one thing I've always said about social media, I mean, I used to say this about Facebook, which I'm not the biggest fan of Facebook anymore, but I am still there. And on the one hand, it's like, there's so many people that I am in touch with and at least know what's going on with that I wouldn't otherwise know because just life and distance and just taking different paths in life. But it also creates this false sense of, oh, I know what's going on with Carmen, so I don't need to call her.
Yeah.
I see she's here. I see she's there. I mean, you're not a good example because we actually do text each other literally every day, multiple times a day.
Oh boy, that group chat.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how many people are listening or who are on a group chat, but Carmen and I are on a group chat with our girlfriends in Brooklyn. Even though I don't live there anymore, I'm still on the chat. And
You're forever Brooklyn. Sorry.
I'm forever.
Even in LA.
And no, I love being on. It's funny because sometimes I'm like, oh, they're just like yesterday. You guys were all the text messages about meeting in Fort Greene Park and going to dinner. I was like, okay, I can just zone those out. But having that support and having those, we can tell each other anything in that group chat, and everybody's such a cheerleader for everyone, which is such a beautiful thing, having access to those, to those friendships. So that's a little bit more, at least not social media. It's not for everybody else to see. That's for us being, thousands of miles away. That's the best that we can do in terms of IRL. But I think that it's so easy for everyone to feel like, oh, I know what's going on with my friends because I saw it on Instagram, I saw it on Facebook, and then it just creates it just exacerbates the whole problem with social media, because then I think for a lot of people, it makes them then not go the extra mile to reach out, to get together, to have people over, because you just feel like, oh, I kind of just know what everybody's doing and I'll just stay home and watch Netflix.
When I've done something really exciting, getting a congrats on Facebook is nice, but when it's someone that you actually care about and someone that knows you in real life and you never actually reach out and have a conversation with them personally, it's just in this public space that, with emojis and balloons, it's not quite the same. And so I think that, we have kind of gotten into this microwave society now kind of with everything. So even love, consideration, and compassion, and cheering people on is even kind of fast food. It's put into a microwave, given into a fast way, and then you just kind of keep it moving because it's the easy way. I'm already online. Yeah. I can say hello to all these people at once, and that should be sufficient. And I think it's really not.
Yeah, it's not. This morning, actually, this just happened about an hour ago. A friend of mine texted me to tell me that she's pregnant. And it's great news. And she's like, I'm sorry I'm telling you this via text. And, she's telling me she's expecting twin girls in December.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really exciting. I'm so happy for her. But I'm like, oh, my God. And part of me is like, I need to just pick up the phone and call her in response to this message. But I was doing a bunch of other things and I was getting ready for this interview. And I was like, I just can't call her right now. So I wound up just sending her, emojis and balloons and so excited and and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, this is lame. I gotta not just default to this texting thing all the time. But
you mentioned texting is personal.
It is personal. Yes, it's personal. Yes.
It's a special message interaction and encounter with them versus in a public space with a bunch of strangers.
Agreed.
Or followed up at some point with a phone call.
Love. So you mentioned love a couple of times, and that's what this podcast is all about. So let's dive a little bit deeper. I interviewed my friend Corinne last week, and we were talking about her dating life, which is very active. It occurred to me to ask her this question, which I was like, oh, I think this is a pretty good question. So I want to ask you this question too, which is, do you think more about love or dating?
Oh, boy, that's a great question. You know what? Honestly, I think more about dating than love. And I say this because I actually enjoy dating.
What do you enjoy about it?
I enjoy the newness of getting to know someone and seeing if it's a fit. I enjoy the process. And so I think that for me, of course, I do know now, especially as I've been really exploring my dating habits, that's something that I'm totally open to and would love. But dating for me is fun. I really, really enjoy it. And so because I travel so much, what I've found is that men sometimes have a tough time with the women in their lives traveling a lot. Dating for me is a nice way to get some needs met as far as intimacy and connection without necessarily the full commitment.
Mm-hmm. You say that eventually you want love. Does that mean that if it happened tomorrow, is that not part of the plan? Like, what's the ideal scenario?
You know what? I've stopped thinking about what a plan is. It's really just about whatever the flow is. If I meet someone and it's a match, I'll go for it. And if I think it's someone that can be a match long term, I'm in it. As of yet, I haven't found anyone.
Have you ever had the case where, like, do you meet men at shows, your shows?
I do, and that's a no-no for me.
Okay, I was going to say, I could see how that would happen all the time, but I don't know, it might be kind of a complicated dynamic.
Yes, and this has been for years, especially, because the only way they can stay connected to me is within social media. I get love notes, and I get, please just give me one chance to take you on one date so I can show you. But I've always ignored those. They met me on stage. They met me in lights. They met me in clothing and makeup and hair, and it's a show. And so I don't ever want to start something with someone that thinks that that's always going to be who I am. I really, really needed to not be in that space. You can find out later this is what I do, and then you can even check it out and say, wow, you're pretty good at that.
They must find out very quickly,
actually,
even if you meet them out of that context.
Not always.
Really?
Not always. I'm seeing someone, he found out. I usually say I'm a consultant.
Yeah.
That's how I started. I say I'm a consultant. And then from there, it grows into, I actually, sing and I tour and I do some other things. And then I might share, or they might then do some research. Not the first thing I say. I don't know what it means for people. This is already a very interesting life. So I don't know what, me being, on stage, how that makes, just something I'd rather not lead with. Yeah.
Do you think, though, that you run the risk of preemptively cutting someone out or not considering someone who, even though he met you in that context, even though he knows your career, he could still be a great match for you?
I'd rather run the risk of missing than getting into a situation where, there's an artist named Eric Roberson. He's a brilliant singer-songwriter and a fantastic storyteller as a songwriter. He has a song that was really, really popular years ago called Couldn't Hear Me Over the Music. And it's literally him telling the story of meeting a woman who was watching him from stage, and they started a relationship from the stage, but she could never see him outside of the stage. She was kind of stuck, and it wasn't real, It doesn't mean that what we're not giving on stage is real, but there is that attraction that you're seeing is a little bit of fandom. I don't mind you becoming a fan after you get to know me, but starting as a fan is something that I'm not, especially if you're not already in entertainment, so you don't really understand kind of how this works and what's happening behind the scenes and what life is like on the road. So I'd rather potentially miss out, rather meet somebody in real life.
Well, but I guess my point is, it is still real life. I guess, you know what? I think you're not giving yourself enough credit for being able to determine who's a fan and who has that, you're up on a pedestal, they're attracted to you, at least in part because of seeing you on stage and this idea they have of what that means. I think you probably have a better radar than you are giving yourself credit for weeding those people out.
Yeah, and I think part of that radar is from having kind of a couple of earlier experiences, and those experiences were a teacher for me that it's a tough transition for people to make. What I've seen is that it's a tougher transition for men to make.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know guys that meet their girls in those spaces, but women that meet their men in those spaces, it just looks very different.
It's definitely a challenge, but I guess I'm kind of a fan of, because during part of my quote unquote love career, I don't mean quote unquote this has been my career.
I think it's still going.
It's still going, but for I've been doing this now for years. Working first as a matchmaker and then as a coach. Yeah. And I've been single for parts of those times, large parts of that time. And I started to use it as a litmus test. When I would meet a guy and I tell him what I do, I mean, it's not the same because it's not a fame thing, but it was still a thing where I could see, based on their reaction to it, whether this is somebody who I could actually consider dating or not. And so guys that were like, you know, some guys would get really insecure and they'd be like, oh, are you judging me right now? Oh, did I just do? And I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm just a person. Like, stop, you know? And, you know, so that was a very common reaction, which was kind of surprising and also told me like, you're not the guy for me. But then the guys who were just kind of like, oh, that's really cool. And they might have some questions, but then it's done. And we move on. And then it's about us and the connection, then I'd be like, okay, you're somebody that I could date. And the same thing with like, you know, being on a reality TV show, you know, which I was. And there are guys who are like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh my God, if you're going to be intimidated at all or impressed by the fact that I was on Survivor, we can't date.
And so that same litmus test that you use, I use it as well. Again, I say what I do fairly early in the process. I just don't lead with it.
Yeah.
So that's how I determine who I want to proceed with. But the challenge is if you meet me on stage, if you have been a fan of my music or a fan of the music of the band that I'm in, or I have gone on a couple of dates with those guys, and the conversation always tunnel vision as far as they want to ask me all about everything I've seen.
Yeah, that's not the guy for you.
So meeting me in those spaces, that's what they want to talk about. And I've had a guy that also has just been like fawning over me, and I'm not a celebrity, but it's this weird.
Well, you kind of are.
A little, but still.
How do we define celebrity today anymore? I don't even know. Honey, you have, I don't know how many thousands of Instagram followers. You're a celebrity. You go on your face. I saw your face on a billboard in the Ukraine. Okay.
Okay, this is true, but still.
I mean, I understand what you mean. You're not living some like, you know, you're not living Janet Jackson's life. I understand.
Right. Not even close.
Yeah.
So it's not like everyone knows me, but for those who know me and those who've been fans of my music or they discovered me through this and how they, you know, people connect to music in a very visceral way.
They really do. It's so personal. It's so intimate.
It's so personal. They got to know me as a voice first. Then they see me on stage and they think that I'm attractive or sexy or whatever.
Yeah.
Combine those two things, it's very hard to make a separation to be like, you know what, guess what? I literally, I pass gas just like you do. I have to take off this makeup, and I'm still pretty cute, but I'm still not who you saw on that stage.
Yeah.
When I take these braids out, I'm going to have a big old crazy fro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of those things are like real, and you have to be okay with being with me in every single aspect of who I am. And
absolutely.
If you got to know me first through the music, it's very difficult to make that transition, and that's just what I've seen.
So, if you do decide to give a chance to somebody who's a fan, so show up on your date, like just no makeup, just be like, and this is actually, I think everybody needs to do this, not show up with no makeup, but just instead of approaching dating, instead of approaching it from this perspective of how do I present myself in like the best way or the sexiest way or this way, it's just like, nope, how do I present myself as just really, really, really authentically myself? I am authentically a person who, you know, most days I don't look glamorous, right? Or whatever it is for you. I think that's just how that would be my advice to you. Not that you asked.
But I'm always accepting.
You know,
anytime for any advice works.
Yay. Thank you, Carmen. And, you know, or just like say to him, like, how about we just take a walk? How about we just take a walk in the park? And you just show up, leggings, no makeup, super chill. And I think that would be very telling, actually.
But is it going to stop them from still wanting to know about what was it like in this? And what was it like with that? And
well, I think that I don't think the curiosity is the problem, right? About that. I think it's the energy behind it. Is it
true
in a yearning way of like, oh, I want to be close to this glamorous life? Or isn't it just like, this is important to you, this is your life, I care about your life and your experiences?
Okay, I received that. Okay. So that's something to consider.
Food for thought. One thing that you said a while ago that I'm like, this is true, this is interesting, because I would say the same thing for me. You're not the woman who receives dick pics. And I was never the dick pic woman either. And I wonder what it is about, I guess maybe you and I both have a similar kind of no nonsense demeanor, I guess.
I think that's part of it too.
I guess that's part of it. So they're like, why bother? Why bother?
I think will she be impressed with the dick pic?
She's not going to be impressed. She's going to block me. She might even put me on blast, right? Which would be even worse. So I guess maybe we have that.
What's the incentive to send this dick pic? Maybe they think that.
Maybe. Okay. And then I have a question about your creative process and, kind of going along with this discussion about men and feeling like not wanting to date fans and people who are approaching you through that avenue. You are not only a singer, but you're also a songwriter. And so as somebody you are not just performing music, but it's music that you have created. Do you feel that your songs could someone get to know you through your songs, through your music? And just like you said, what you were talking about Janet Jackson, and you said, throughout her career, she's had this certain message about freedom, about love. And that's something that you feel that's very authentic to who she is. And what are the messages that are in your music? And is it valid for somebody to feel that they know you or understand something about you because of your songs?
Yeah, my approach to songwriting has always been kind of about storytelling through some of my experiences and through, things I've witnessed. But for the most part, most of the songs I write are still about love. I do love love. Yeah. I think love is a beautiful thing. I think experiencing love and heartbreak is just, par for the course. So I think that, and that's helped shape me as a songwriter, but also really as a person, and there have been moments that I can absolutely say I've been jaded. But then there are moments that I can say, it was just really eye-opening that, I always say human beings do human things. And part of that human existence and experience is people screwing up. And sometimes people screw up with people they actually care about. And so so a lot of the songs that I have written have been about being in love, but a lot of it's been about heartbreak or trying to mend it because I've been on both the giving and receiving end of the heartbreak. And so, and that's in trying to get to know myself and exploring what I did and didn't like and, determining, how I felt about monogamy and fidelity, whatever the terms are for those terms to be. So when I approach writing, you can listen to all of my projects and probably figure out what space I was in.
Yeah. It didn't come from nowhere.
It didn't come from nowhere. Did not happen in a vacuum. You are up in there.
Right. I imagine that must feel very revealing and vulnerable to create a song that really relates to something so personal and put that out into the world.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I wrote a song called It's Me, and it's one of it's a fan favorite. It's from my second project. It's called The Bittersweet, and it's like sweet SUITE. It's a suite of songs after I had a relationship, like I thought he was the love of my life. Thought I was going to marry this man and walk off into the sunset and be on the porch rocking, until we held hands and died together. Like that's what I thought was going to happen with this person, and our relationship went down in absolute flames. Like it ended so badly, and there was no recovery. There was no way it was going to recover. It was horrible. And I remember I got the music from one of my producers, and I loved the music, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with the music. After my heart was ripped out of my chest and thrown against the wall,
funny. God, I know that feeling. God.
Yeah.
I just...
Oh boy. Like it was like I really thought, how this pain, what is this? Like
God,
what is this pain?
It's so destabilizing, I think that's the thing about heartbreak that's so, it's like, yeah, it's sad, but it's also just like like, I thought that gravity existed. I thought that the sky was blue. And now that's all out the window. And literally, I don't know which way is up.
No, you don't. You can't see.
Yeah.
You have a hard time thinking. Like, you're really just like, what day of the week is it? Who am I? Really, all the existential questions start coming up.
Let me ask you a question, though, actually. Do you think that even if you fall, I'm not if, because you will fall in love again, of course.
I believe so. Yeah.
But even, I believe so. I'm sure of it. I don't have any doubt about that. But do you think that if you were to experience heartbreak again, do you think that it could ever be that devastating? Or do you think that, and to say nothing of like, how you feel about your partner, just like, say you loved your ex who broke your heart, 100 out of a scale of 1 to 100. So max love, right? Yeah. And you could meet somebody else and you still get to that max love. But if it doesn't work out, do you feel that you just have the maturity and the sort of self-love at this point in your life that you can weather that and not have it be such a devistating event? What do you think?
I think that if you fall in love and someone breaks your heart, you're going to be devastated. I don't think there's any way not to be devastated. I think it might look different. It might feel a little bit different, but the devastation is there nonetheless. And I say this because that relationship was the person I thought I was going to marry. And it rocked my foundation. Like, entire foundation was rocked. I really didn't know who I was. And that's how I felt for a while. And I ended up writing a song called It's Me from a track. I originally didn't know what to do with that music. And after my world was rocked, I remember I played that music from my producer that initially I didn't know what I was going to do with the music. I got in the shower, I cried and wrote that song in literally 4 minutes.
Wow.
And to this day, I still get people that say, I feel like that song, you literally were in my life and wrote that song for me. And It's about a woman saying to this man, like, why can't you see that I'm here, that I'm enough, that all of these things that you're searching for, you have right here next to you. What else do you need? Why can't you see me? Can you just see me? It's one of those see me songs. Okay, now let's fast forward to years later to me having a, kind of a casual relationship with a friend. And that friend, then we ended up going our separate ways. We both started seeing other people and realized that we had stronger feelings for one another than we thought. But now we're both seeing other people, and him seeing someone seriously, and then me starting to see someone else. And when we completely, we had to stop being friends.
Yeah, I think if you like somebody as a friend, you care about them as a friend, and you're attracted to them, and you have that physical, that sexual connection, then I don't understand how you could not catch feelings in that situation.
Yeah. But we thought we hadn't, because we were just like, we don't really make sense in real life. It's not the best fit. I don't think I can meet your needs long term. You don't think you can meet my needs long term. But we're friends, so it's fun.
Famous last words, Carmen. Famous last words. Oh my goodness. Well, speaking of last words, I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
And that question is, if you had a megaphone loud enough for the whole world to hear, okay, and you could send out one message about love, what would that message be?
Wow. I would actually say, even though I've experienced heartbreak, heartache, all of the things you can think of that happens, and you're just like, wow, that happened to me too. A lot of that has happened to me. I say still never give up. Never give up. Because even in all of those relationships where I've been heartbroken, I can still look back and say, whoa, I learned so much about myself. And, I can still look and say, man, there were some experiences there that I still cherish to this day. So I still don't regret any of them. So
I love it.
Say, you know, in a megaphone, I'd say, hey, just don't ever give up.
Yes, love is worth it.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
It's worth the journey.
The feeling, the good stuff is worth it.
Amen to that. I love that. And I love you.
And I love you. Thank you so much for having me on
Thank
the podcast.
you so much for being on the podcast. And in the show notes, we are going to link to your social media and to your music. So everyone, please be sure to check that out. Stay in touch with Carmen. She is so talented. You need her in your life. I need you in my life, and I'm grateful that you are in my life, Carmen. Thank you for listening to my interview with Carmen Rodgers. Please be sure to check the show notes so you can link to all of Carmen's social media, as well as her new brand, Derriere. You can also stay in touch with me. If you check out the show notes, you will find links to my Instagram, which is Dear Franny. The podcast is Dear Franny Podcast. Yes, I make these things very easy for myself. And you can always, always, always reach out to me. Let me know what you think of the show. For those of you who are listening all around the world, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much. I don't take for granted that time is precious and you are spending some of yours with me, and I very much appreciate it. So thank you. Feel free to subscribe, rate and review us if you like this podcast. Until next time, goodbye.